Children waiting for the day they feel good. Happy birthday, happy birthday. And to feel the way that every child should sit and listen, sit and listen. Went to school and I was very nervous. No one knew me, no one knew me. Hello teacher, tell me what's my lesson. Look right through me, look right through me.
Hey, what's up YouTubers? It's me again, Brian, and I just want to say happy holidays, or whatever holiday you celebrate today. Christmas, of course, but in either case, happy holidays though. And in my last video, I did the top 10 games on the PlayStation system that I thought were good this year for 2015. Well, now I'm back with another one. This time, the top 10 games I figured that I thought were good on the Nintendo system, though. Now, this one was a little bit difficult to do in a way, because for the games on the Nintendo system, there were some good. There weren't a whole lot of good. There were certainly some good games, don't get me wrong. There certainly were. There just wasn't a whole lot to choose from in terms of to make this top 10, though. So it was a little bit difficult. That said, I was able to manage to find 10 games that I liked, that I thought was good for 2015 this year on the Nintendo system. So let's get started. All right, number 10. This one is released on both the Wii and the 3DS, and it is Rodado the Sky Soldier. This is a number 10 game. Now, this game right here was created by the same person who created the Sonic the Hedgehog games and the cult hit game on the Sega Saturn, with a somewhat sequel released on the Wii back in 2007, the Knights games, though. The gameplay, based on my time with it, though, is very much close to what the Knights games were as well. And what makes this kind of interesting, what makes this game interesting, is that this was originally developed for the Wii and the 3DS, and it never really, and it was like sort of like disappeared when they originally announced it, and no one knew what happened to the game. And well, they released it this year, though. It is a good game. I did enjoy it, though. The one big flaw that might not sit well with some people, I think this is for the Wii U version, is the camera. If you played any 3D Sonic game, any Sonic game in 3D before, the camera isn't exactly the best thing, considering that you're moving your character in a 3D environment, though. Same rule applies to this one, since this was created by the same guy who created the original Sonic games, though, and some of the 3D ones before he left. But at the same time, since you're not running at top speed like what Sonic is, it's not as bad, though. So at the very least, you have some control over it. Again, not perfect, but not great either. What makes this game kind of interesting, though, is that if you picked up the Wii U version and pick up a copy, it surprisingly comes with a copy of the game that was supposed to be released back on the Wii a while back. So you get to try two different versions of the game. The Wii copy, and of course the Wii U version as well. Alright, and it's a fun game. I mean, it is a niche title, though, and unfortunately, one of the worst things happened to it is that it came out on the same day that, well, this came out, and most likely a lot of people who were, basically most of the people when this came out pretty much purchased this, didn't even bother picking this up, which, well, while somewhat disappointing, at the same time, these two are niche games after all. So quite frankly, they're not going to have the same kind of appeal to a lot of people. But if you are a fan of niche games, I would recommend try these out. These are good. And if you're a fan of the Knights games, it's worth taking a look at as well. All right, so that's number 10. And like I said, I'll have a link to some of the trailers and all in the description so you can take a look yourself. Number 10 on my list is going to go to Monster Hunter 4. Now, wasn't huge on the Monster Hunter games though. I played, I think it was Monster Hunter G on the Wii U though, and then I think they released it for the 3DS though, and it was good, but not perfect. I just still have to get used, still, figuring out some of the stuff and all. But what made me attracted to this one is that I like the fact that while it is a multiplayer game, you can also play this game as fun as a single player, and like anybody, the game does have its charm. It is a fun game to play, and if you have a 3DS, or particularly the new one, this is worth giving it a go and giving it a try, though. If you have the new one, it takes advantage of the C-Stick in terms of, you have more control over the camera than you did if you had, like, the regular 3DS or anything like that. So, again, it has its followings. It is a fun game. I have played it, so while not big on it, but it is definitely fun, and it's great if you're playing as a single player. That's good. Multiplayer, of course, and there are some DLCs available. It's worth taking a look at as well. So, Monster Hunter 4 goes on to my number 9 list. Now, number 8 is sort of a niche game as well. This one, again, not everyone heard of it though, is Lords of, I think, Manga Made in Heaven. Okay, we'll just call it Made in Heaven though. Another niche game. It's from Xseed as well. Favorite one of the publishers I like. They produce some really fun games, such as the Bikini Zombie. I think Onichiba. That was on my number 9 on my PlayStation list. And of course, this one that was an honorable mention. Akiba Trip, Undead and Undressed. We're taking a look. Excuse me. It is mostly a fan service game, but it's definitely a fun one as well. The combat is actually kind of interesting because while it is sort of an RPG, instead of attacking, like one enemy or anything, you can basically, with your characters and with several of the maidens you can control, some of them can attack multiple enemies, and when doing that, you can create sort of like a chain reaction that can affect other enemies as well. It's a little bit hard to explain it a bit, so with that, I do have, a combat trailer and trailer for the game, so you could take a look at it for yourself and see how the combat works. But overall, again, a niche game, of course, but definitely a fun one. So it's worth taking a look at. So Lord of Made in Heaven, I have a hard time saying that word, is number 8 on my list. So definitely worth taking a look, especially if you're a fan of niche games, though. All right, going on to number 7. And this one is going to be Yoshi's Woolly World. Now, I have a soft spot for the Yoshi games. I remember playing the original one back in 1995. Was in middle school when that came out for the Super Nintendo, and it's definitely a fun and enjoyable 2D games. Some of the sequels though have been kind of like, they're good. I mean, Yoshi's Story was good. Yoshi Island DS and Yoshi's New Island, they were all good games, but none of them were able to capture the kind of charm that the first one did. So Yoshi's Woolly World, however, does a better job recapturing that charm, and while it's not as good as the first one, the first, Yoshi Island game back on the Super Nintendo, it's still an enjoyable game to play. Love the art style. I definitely like the whole knitting and everything. Definitely really like the art style in that game, though. It is a fun, classic, true Nintendo platforming game. You can play it as, 2 players, though. It's developed by Feel Good. I believe that's their name. Or Good Feel, though. These are the same guys that did 2010 Kirby's Epic Yarn for the Wii, the original Wii, and 2008, and this is a favorite of mine, they did Wario Land Shake It for the original Wii. So Nintendo, I would love to see a new Wario Land game, though. Thank you very much. Basically, the game is also 2 players, though. You could play it, and the game does support amiibos, though, but most of the amiibo support is usually just for skins, though. And basically, just like the Wario Land and the Kirby's Epic Yarn, you can't really die on the game. So for some, that might make the game a little too easy though. But the real challenge kicks in if you're trying to unlock everything and find everything and get a perfect score. That's where the game's challenge really does kick in. So Yoshi's Woolly World is number 7 on my list of games for the Nintendo system. So definitely worth picking this one up though. My nephew got this for Hanukkah though, and a Wii U for Hanukkah though. So he definitely is trying Yoshi's Woolly World out for the first time. So Yoshi's Woolly World. All right, let's see. What are we at? Number 6. All right, number 6 on my list is Splatoon. Now, I'm not big on multiplayer games. I mean, don't get me wrong; they can be fun, but I'm not huge on I'm not huge on the multiplayer games. I'm not big on the asymmetric multiplayer games. I know there's an audience for that, and I know some people like that, and that's fine. It's just my preference is not really big on it, but every once in a while I do dig into multiplayer games and do try them out. And Splatoon actually proved to be a very fun multiplayer game. What made this game kind of interesting is, other than having a fun single player, though, which sort of like is kind of like a shooter mixed with a Mario platform kind of approach, is the way the multiplayer is set up is that it's not set up like a traditional, multiplayer shooter games like Call of Duty is. Excuse me. The idea behind this is that you basically have to paint your territory. So the more territory you paint, the more bigger chance you win the multiplayer match though. You could take out other opponents and slow them down, but that's not the main goal. The main goal is to basically see how much territory you can paint and take away from your opponent as well. And it's an interesting idea. It's an interesting concept, and definitely a different take on it. Plus, what also makes it really good is that Nintendo has been offering free updates for this. So some of the DLCs they offer are coming for free. So that's a plus. So I think that's very good. The game does support amiibos, which basically can be used to basically unlock new costumes and all by replaying some of the single player levels using different weapons and everything. So it's worth trying out. If you want to try something different as a multiplayer game, it's definitely worth taking a look at. So Splatoon basically makes it at number 6. I do have a link to, I think I did a written review on Amazon. I gave it 4 stars though. I'll have a link in the description so you could take a look and you could look for my name up there. So number 6 goes to Splatoon. Okay, now we're going down to the top 5 for the Nintendo system. Excuse me, just one second. Number 5 on my list, it's going to go to Super Mario Maker. Now, as many have referred to this as a spiritual successor to Mario Paint, and in a way, I could see that. It definitely has the charm and all, and it's really one of the games that uses the Wii U gamepad, something I think Nintendo should have done earlier on in the Wii U's life cycle, though. All right, I love the fact that the game basically gives you a lot of creative freedom to basically design the game however you want to, using Super Mario Brothers setting, Super Mario Bros. 3 setting, Super Mario World setting, or the new Super Mario Bros. U setting. What also makes it fascinating is that you could kind of mix and match certain things up. Like, you could put, Boo in Super Mario, the original Super Mario Bros., since he wasn't in there. You could put airships in, Super Mario World or Super Mario Brothers. Again, airship levels were not technically in those games. I mean, there was a sunken airship level in Super Mario World, but that was underwater and all. So there's a lot of mix and matching you could do with the game. What also makes it kind of interesting is that in order to upload a level, you have to actually beat it. So in other words, you can't really make a level that's so impossible no one can beat, sort of like trolling. You have to actually play it yourself, beat the game, beat that level, and then upload it, before it can be uploaded. So, and I've done some levels as well. One interesting thing I have to say about this game, though, is the fact that it does support amiibos, which can only be used in the Super Mario Brothers setting, the original one. But what makes it interesting is, unlike other games, if you don't have if you don't have the amiibo to unlock that certain skin, that's okay. If you play through the game, you unlock it, though, making it a little bit easier, though. So even if you don't have the amiibo, that's fine. But still, Devil's Third is definitely. I mean, not, I'm sorry. I mean, Super Mario Maker. I get getting those mixed up though. Is definitely my number 5 game, and it's definitely a fun game, especially if you like, especially the mix and matching. So get this one if you have a chance. It's worth giving it a try, though. Definitely worth trying out, and it's one of the best uses of the gamepad I've seen for a while. Shame it wasn't released earlier on. That would have been great to help that out, though. All right, now we're going on to number 4. This one might be controversial to some people. This game was panned by a lot of critics, but the response has been mostly positive. I did a review on it. I did a YouTube video about it, though. I'll have a link on the description. You can take a look for yourself. And my number 4 pick, gotta go to Devil's Third. Now, despite what critics have to say of it, having played the game, it's actually fun. Again, it's not that bad. It's not perfect, I will agree, but I love the gun. I think the gunplay is great. I love the melee combat, though. The stories, it's not, doesn't take itself too seriously, but that's okay. I mean, it's sort of like an 80s flick. And the multiplayer is also fun as well. So you could play, like a regular match or engage in a clan or something like that. Yes, visually it's not the best looking game, but it's not the worst looking game since it's been in development hell for a long, long time, though. And I really think it's a shame that that some critics panned this game, because it's really fun and I really enjoy it. And again, this might be controversial for some people, but I personally enjoyed this over any Call of Duty game. I enjoyed this shooter more than I did with Call of Duty, and I think but again, that's my opinion, though, and I think it's fun single player, fun multiplayer. If you're lucky to find a physical copy, that's great, because word is that they didn't make a whole lot of them, though. If not, your only best option at this point is to get the game through the Nintendo eShop, though. So if you couldn't find a physical copy, then eShop may be your only option, though. But get some friends around and play some Devil's Thirds. Again, I'll have a link to a review I have. A link to the review I did on YouTube, though. You can take a look at my thoughts about the game. All right. Also, I'll have a link to some of the gameplay footage of me playing it as well. So take a look at that as well. All right. down to the 3 left. Number 3 on my list is going to go to this was a port of a Wii game brought to the 3DS, and this was the only game available that can only be played on the new 3DS, though. Xenoblade Chronicles 3D. Now, minus the fact that the 3D doesn't do much in the game or anything else, though, I remember playing this when it came back out in 2012, near the end of the Wii's life cycle, though. And normally, RPGs for me are kind of a hit and miss. There are some good ones, there are some bad ones. But this was one that I've really sunk some time into and really enjoyed, though. I mean, the story I find very good. The idea of life is existing on these 2 titans, one mechanic, one, organic, like humans and so on, though. And the combat is actually very fascinating. The whole idea of your character automatically attacks, and you use these things called arts to basically combat these enemies. They're kind of like your special moves, and sort of regenerate, and then those regenerate over time. You don't want to use all of them up. You want to time it and know exactly which one you want to use, though. To the fact that the game doesn't use items since your health regenerates, though. Or certain items, though. So it's a very fun RPG. It uses a lot of ideas from Western RPGs, but it's still, a Japanese RPG. If you missed out on the Wii version and you have a you have the new 3DS. This is a highly recommend you play though. Okay, I do hope that along with this one, I would love to see a port. I would say, as a side note, I would love to see a port of The Last Story and Pandora's Tower. Nintendo, get onto that, please, though, to the 3DS, because I would like, because these games were very fun, and I really think it's unfortunate that Nintendo doesn't give it as much of attention as it should have gotten, though. Although the first one certainly did, thanks to the fact that Shook is on Super Smash Brothers. So, excuse me. Oh dear. So that's very nice, though. So I say, if you have a 3DS and you want to experience what Xenoblade Chronicles was before the new one came out, Xenoblade Chronicles X, this is worth taking a look at. So highly recommend this for your new 3DS. Xenoblade Chronicles, though. All right. Now to number 2, and this one kind of holds a place in my heart, though, okay? And that is The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask 3D. And the reason why this holds a place in my heart is for several reasons. 15 years ago, I remember playing the original one on the N64 when it came out during the end of the Nintendo 64 life cycle. And to me, and this is my opinion, it's often referred to as a black sheep of the family, but to me, it's one of the best Zelda games I've ever played. I think the story's good. I love the dark tone to it, though. I think I feel the game target is a little bit more towards an older audience than the original, than the other Zelda games, though. And so it was a really fun game, though. There have been ports, from the original Wii to when ever since Ocarina of Time 3D came out for the 3DS, people have clamored and wanted the Majora's Mask to come over, and there has been a fan base to it. So when they announced it, I was like, yes! And I have to say that they did make some modifications, some changes, though, to it from the original N64 heydays. The Bomber's Notebook, I think, is much easier to read, though. Oh, in my opinion, though. So it's not as complicated, though. Let's see, what else? Certain businesses and certain things that were originally in the N64 version, while some of that's still there, has kind of been moved around a little bit, though. Some new things such as fishing, although I don't know if that's as big of a deal, but if you're trying to collect everything, there you go. Visually, the game has gotten a bit overhauled from the N64 version, though. And, of course, since you can also play it on the new 3DS, and it takes advantage of, the little C-stick, in terms of controlling the camera. So rather than pushing the R button so many times, though. And what really adds to it is that, like I said, it has a darker tone, but some of the music in the game is really good. Especially if you're in Clock Town on the third day. I mean, it adds a very scary and spooky tone to it. But what really adds to it is the final hours. When the countdown begins and the moon starts ascending, the music adds sort of an odd, creepy vibe to it that I remember reading this in an article 15 years ago on IGN, which described it as, imagine hearing that song while hearing the scene where from the Never Ending Story, and a very old movie I remember, where the nothing is sucking everything up. It's that spooky, though, in a way, and I like that, though. And one other thing I would like to point out that they made also as a change, though, is that unlike the N64 version, your game's not automatically saved after you go back to day one. You'll have to find a save point in the game, so keep that a little bit in mind when you do. I will say, as number 2, this is one of my favorite Zelda games of all time. It is a personal favorite of mine, and I highly recommend, if you have a 3DS, pick this one up, though, okay? If you're not a big fan of the Triforce one from the multiplayer, play this one. This is a fun single-player game, okay? You will not be disappointed, though. All right. And now, the number 1 game. The number 1 Nintendo game I enjoyed in 2015 that was released on the Nintendo system. Some people may or may not agree with me on this, but here it is. I think the name speaks for itself. This is definitely one of the, like Xenoblade Chronicles for the 3DS, this was definitely one of the funnest RPGs I have played in a while, and it's one of the only RPG right now, not counting any virtual console releases though, right now available on the Wii U at this moment though. Visually, it looks great. It looks beautiful. I love exploring the world mirror though. Combat-wise, there's some improvements, though. Now, instead of your character arming with one weapon, they now have two. One range, like a gun, and the other one, like a melee, I think like a sword, and so on. I definitely, I think the story, not as strong as the first Xenoblade Chronicles, but still interesting to listen. Still interesting to listen to, nevertheless, though. Some of the side missions are a little bit easier now, thanks to the fact that you could sort of pinpoint where they are. So, and it definitely uses the gamepad very well, though. I mean, it's not a perfect. I mean, it may not be perfect for everybody, but I think it's one of the better uses of the gamepad I've seen for a while, along with games like Super Mario Maker and the Wonderful 101. Though, I like the fact that you can, warp to some areas with the touch of the gamepad and so on. I mean, you could play the game with the Pro Controller, but gamepad is the way to go, though. So, if you have a Wii U, I would highly recommend you pick this one up, though, okay? I did a review on it, so take a look at my review. I'll have a link in the description, though, of it, though, and you can see for yourself and see why I enjoyed the game. Though. All right, so that concludes with my top 10 games on a Nintendo system. And like I always, that's my opinion. What's yours? Do you agree with my list? Do you disagree? Do you think some games should have been on there? Do you think I made the right choices for some of the games on the Nintendo system? Or do you not 100% agree? Or do you think there were some other games I should have added on that list? Okay? As always, leave a comment. I hope you liked the video, and I hope you guys subscribe to my YouTube channel. In your case, this concludes this top 10. All right. If you missed out on the PlayStation, the one I did, the PlayStation one, I'll have a link in the description, and you can see for yourself, though. And I wish all of you a very happy holidays or Merry Christmas to folks out there. And hopefully, I will see you again next time when I do another video, alright? Anyway, have a safe and happy holidays. Bye!
And I find it kind of funny, I find it kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell you, I find it hard to take. People run in circles, it's a very, very mad